Let's get the cameras rolling.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. I was going to ask Bill if he had a personal experience that maybe gave him a boost into trying to investigate this matter a little more.
Originally, doing that, you got one? Okay, I'll answer them and then we'll hit them. Originally, this was supposed to be a one-off, just a documentary. And I was warned by several of the people that I interviewed that things will start happening. Since October of last year, well, I guess the last week of September of last year, so just over a year, right? But yeah, I've had 7 different things happen. I have 5 of them on camera. Now, the sensible side of me is going, am I noticing these things because I am in this world now and I'm doing this investigation and I'm just more observant? Or is something happening simply because I've dived into this phenomena head on? I don't know. Have I been abducted? Have I met an alien? No. But I mean, I've had something as recent as last month that it's enough to where you question things.
And I'm going to chime in just real quick. Once you see them, and I've heard a lot of people tell me this, once you see them, you will continue to see them. The reason why we're seeing them more is because we do have phones. If everybody was to do like what I do, hey, it would be a moot point. It'd be done. It'd just be a moot point. And but that's really it. Once you start seeing things, you're going to start seeing them, and then they do know. They communicate with you. They know. My friend Nigel in the UK, I told him, I said, yeah, I have to go to bed earlier and do different stuff. I said, I'd really like to be able to see him, earlier. He said, that's fine. And I said, yeah, I saw one the other night. It was earlier. And then he's like, yeah, they know. I'm like, okay.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
You know, my experience started in 1973, ended in 1998. So the technology we had at that time was nothing
Right.
like what you guys have experienced through your technology today. It was all eyewitness. It was all with maybe, bad pictures and whatever, and even the National Enquirer. So, and the word didn't get out as quickly or as accurately as it possibly does now. So, I'm of that generation where we really connected, in a different way to this phenomenon, even though most of us were ignored and ridiculed during that period of time. So there's a difference. There's kind of a little bit of a clash here of my generational encounters versus their generational encounters, somewhat.
And
But however,
go ahead.
we have all here, the 3 of us here, have all experienced very identical things. So over these decades, how they operate and what they do hasn't really changed. So look at it that way. That's what I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But Brian and Drew, one of the reasons I broke this into the series called The Complete Interviews is if I'm doing this documentary and something happens to me, obviously it's something that I should put in the documentary, right? But I didn't want to take away from their stories. So we broke it down so they get their stories, and it's not how convenient the filmmaker also experienced the same thing. This is a farce. I didn't want it to be that. I didn't want to take away from their stories. So we released these interviews first. And then I'll come back to it. I'm going to have my own documentary that's going to have these interviews intermingled in to tell the story that I'm trying to tell. But when we look at stuff and we go, why can't you get a clean picture of Bigfoot. We have cameras everywhere. Why can't you get a clean picture of a UFO? Well, the clean pictures we have of UFOs are the ones where we see on Facebook or whatever, and it's got it, over Argentina, over Colombia, and obviously it's CGI. There's just no doubt. We have frauds in this genre because it's an interesting genre. It intrigues people. So yes, you get those frauds. You also get them in a different angle, which Dave calls space gypsies. These are the ones that profit and become the Kardashians of UFOs type thing, right?
Exploitation.
They exploit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful with that. You also have mental illness, and mental illness looks for things to latch onto so that they can feel a commonality with somebody, somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And we've all discussed this in the interviews that I asked these questions. I asked, I asked everyone up here, have they ever been on LSD? Is there any way that these could be repercussions of drugs you did back in the 70s? That type of thing, right? We know the government had MK Ultra. They were drugging their own agents.
Yeah.
So it's not even, it's feasible that something like that could have happened, especially when you start planting thoughts. If I'm Mark's commanding officer in the Navy and Mark, tell me about, do you see anything off the bow last night? Mark's gonna go, no. Said, you didn't see the thing that took a 90-degree angle and turned from purple to orange? And I'm staring you down. Yes. Yeah. So you start planting this in, and Mark may have saw something that he wasn't quite sure of, but now the commanding officer is starting to describe something in detail that may not be the exact detail Mark has. But now Mark, in his mind, especially over years, will start putting that thought in there. So I hope that explains some of it. But yes, again, I'm in the subject and I start seeing things. Is it something that's real? It's obviously real. I've got it on camera. I'm a filmmaker and photographer. You know how hard it is for me to get something on camera that is there for 3 seconds? And that's why you get these blurry and shaky photos and stuff. I had something at the Four Corners area that, the only way I could capture it was through the windshield while I was driving. I just happened to have the camera laying in my seat where I could throw it up there. So I can see why we don't have that clear, definitive look, because it's just hard to do. You don't walk around with a camera waiting for something to appear for 3 seconds.
Unless it's fake.
Well, unless you're out there like we.
And I've done night sky surveys.
Oh yeah.
I've done lots of them. I've got some stuff on there that's interesting. I don't think they're UFOs on the night sky surveys. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, real quick, let me change my battery.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, keep these rolling. You can go ahead.
Hey, sweetheart, did you have a question?
Yeah, let me get back over.
Okay. And even my wife just recently saw a beautiful object up in the sky.
That
Did-
I also asked the board,
That she also asked for, yes.
because I wanted to try it out. Not saying I didn't believe you, just wanted to try it out. Mark, you had mentioned that you had that sensation in your spine and stuff. Did they ever implant anything in there, or did you? ever
I've
go
not
back
found
on it?
anything that's out of the ordinary. I've had a couple MRIs done because I'm an old veteran and my body's breaking down. Not found anything as far as I know. I have woken up before with unexplained bruises on my arms
Oh, yeah.
and have no idea how they got there. Just like right in this area, almost like finger size.
Yeah.
And I've actually been at a regular VA appointment and had one of the doctors look at that and say, "How'd you get that bruise?" I'm like, "I have no idea." I mean, things show up.
Did you have any mark the next morning?
I don't, not that I know of, no. But I do pay attention to stuff like that afterwards. If I think something has happened overnight, I'll be looking around taking pictures. But generally, I don't think there's any physical proof. of
And
anything.
through the interviews, the ones that have had that type of thing happen to them, we've run the gamut. We've run it from where, no, there's been no residual evidence
Right.
to, we've had one whose, his toe print, like you have a thumbprint, his toe print had reversed, which is weird.
Now, there was a time where electrical stuff would malfunction around me. And
Oh,
this is kind
gosh.
of part of my job, I mean, I work with computers and stuff, but lights, for instance, will they'll come on and off. The switch will misbehave. I've had lights fizzle out in my house that I can't explain. I know a little bit about electricity. I'm a ham radio operator. So things were behaving in my house the way they should not behave. And in some cases, I'll try to reproduce what happened and have never been able to do it, or it's never happened since. During certain episodes, that kind of stuff will happen. I had a neighbor who reported very odd lights in the direction over my house one night, right after I thought I'd been visited overnight. And he posted this on the Nextdoor website of these crazy lights. And I didn't have the heart to tell him, it's like, by the way, my house is right underneath
Oh
those.
gosh, yeah.
But that kind of brought it home to me that, yeah, there is something going on with me. So every couple of months, 9 months or so, something like that will happen where I'm like, I think that somebody came to visit me overnight.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I do a lot of podcasts. A lot of people have invited me to guest on their podcast, and what these guys are saying, because if you see me over here going like, yeah, that's exactly right, because that's the way we've heard it. I mean, we hear it from a lot of people, and so everything these guys are saying is straight up. I mean, it's we barely blink, and like I said, once you see them, you're going to continue to see them. Once you're visiting, now I've got a question for you guys, just really quick. Have any of your relatives seen them, like a grandmother, grandparents,
Yes.
generational? See, how did I know to ask that? Because I've heard it before. Generational.
Yeah.
So these guys, if I hooked up one of my cameras, I'd love to put my camera up at your house or maybe your house, just let it sit up there, But generational, it happens to a lot of people, and
I would like to echo something that Dave mentioned earlier about be careful what you wish for.
yes,
I know of a lot of people who will never appear on camera, but are professionals. They're executives. They run their own businesses often, and they found themselves in the same situation that we are in. That they're abductees and have had these things. A lot of them wish it would just go away, because it's interfering with their life, and it's not something that you can necessarily ever get away from. Something came into my house despite all of my locks and solid walls and everything like that. It didn't seem to faze them one bit. I've heard of people moving across the country to try to get some peace, and they get followed. So it is disruptive. I don't really have anything to gain by being here today. I have a lot to lose. People might look at me a little bit differently now, but I'm the kind of person who wants to tell the truth about things that have happened. And you can believe me or you can just choose not to, but I'll tell you what I experienced and how I experienced it. And I guess you can make up your own mind about how you feel about it. But if you are asking for that kind of attention, as Dave said, be careful. I'm not in the camp of thinking they're all space brothers, benevolent and here to save us or whatever, but I'm also not in the camp of there's something evil going on. It's hard to really label them with human intentions when they're not
Right.
human. We
Right.
can't really say what they're doing. I think that I think they're involved in something with me, some kind of project that I don't necessarily understand. They don't seem to want to hurt me. They always put me back in bed. I don't know. These are still things that are yet to be answered. But when I realized it was happening, it was like there was this whole aspect of my life that I just suddenly realized was some weird stuff going on, and I wanted to find out more about it. And the more I talk about it with people like Bill and you, is that when you start sharing stories, you hear other people's stories, and we all have a piece of the puzzle. And when you start collecting those puzzle pieces together, you start to realize what's really going on.
Your manila folder. You
So,
start putting it in your folder.
yes, so it's really
And,
interesting.
You know, how appropriate. We're talking about aliens and UFOs, and I'm gonna call on Gray to ask his question.
Well, Mr. Grant,
Yes.
you mentioned, this may be more the metaphysical realm.
Mhm.
You mentioned that you prayed.
Yes.
Have the ability to contact,
Yes.
we'll assume, let's say, for a good term, contact ETs.
Yes.
You mentioned, Mr. Turner, that you think they were human. So how would you connect the two?
Non-human.
To a traditional, is that correct?
They're non-human.
How would you, and if you agree,
Yes.
how would you explain to the layman Christian, walking along it, in the Western sense, how would you connect the two of praying to a greater entity to find out the ability to contact,
Right.
say, ET?
Mhm.
Traditionally, an ET will not be composed within the Christian belief.
Let's bring that back. Genesis 1, what does it say? Genesis 1. Does anybody know Genesis 1?
Yeah,
What is it? In the beginning, what?
God created the heavens and the earth.
The heavens, everything. So God creates everything. And I've talked to people who are into quantum physics, quantum mechanics. A lot of that explains those higher beings. There's stuff that we can't even comprehend. We can't comprehend how big the universe is, much less. So
We can't even see the edge of the universe.
right, and so there's still a supreme creator. There's still patterns in nature. How do those patterns come about? Now, you were asking about if they're human, right? Or how would you do that?
You have a species.
Right, a hybrid, that do you guys know about the hybridization program? No, maybe not. Here's what I want you to do without getting into this big long thing. Look up President Eisenhower, and the aliens. And you can also see what his granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower, has done. So back in the 40s, 50s, Eisenhower met with the aliens and asked them to be able to experiment and also do things. And I think that they traded. They did a little trade. So y'all probably remember the transistor, right? What was right before the transistor? Tubes and radios. There's a video I want you to look up. It's called The Big Bounce, and it's from AT&T. And what they were doing is they were trying to send a long distance call from one part of the United States to another part, and they were going to send it to this little ball and hoped it worked. Well, it did work. And then President Eisenhower come on and talked about was it the new I'm trying to think what he was talking about, but that things were changing and new technology was coming out. No, okay. We've already looked at the organizational chart, so how do we, the president doesn't know everything. He's a temp. And so that's how a lot of that came about. Look at your phone. 6 years ago, Android phones, up to now, I can do 8K on there now. 6 years ago, 10 years ago, how in the world do we get this technology? So yeah, there's a hybridization program, and it's been going on for years and years. It's been going on for probably thousands of years. You can look at people and just tell. Say, oh, he's got some gray. He looks like a gray. I mean, straight up. Or you can see somebody who's cut, just like square. A lot of those are military police officers, people in in higher positions. And you'll see them and you'll be like, man, you two look like a reptile. And you look square as can be. Or you look like a gray. And, with that, it's kind of hard to say. But with your movie is actually what the incredulous case, right? Even though it is what it is, it's still true.
It was based off of a conversation with a former CIA agent. Yes.
And the statements made by the abductee, me and my wife said, he said he was sick. We're like, oh yeah, I know what he's got. Radiation poisoning. Sure enough, cancer. Yeah. So does that maybe answer your question? I kind of rambled on there. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Religion. So yeah. Let me kind of roll back. And I do apologize. So I work with some really conservative, where I live, a lot of conservative people, and after you do tell them about what you do, then they do come up to you and say, "Oh, I have seen something." So with God being the supreme creator of everything, I ask God quite often, "Hey, can you send your angels? We want to see your angels." And sure enough, there's one night I saw two of them going across. And with the metaphysical and being able to contact them, yeah, God created everything. God created so you can still have a religion, and you can still have UFOs.
That would be, to contact the so-called ETs would be
Yeah.
public.
Of course, anybody can do it. We did it last night. I taught him how to do it. I taught you how to do it. Well, you don't have to worry about doing it. I taught her how to do it. Did they come?
Yeah, they do. Maybe not right away, but then when I sit up there, after a few minutes, after I've just asked in my mind, I'll just sit there and go, I sure was starting to fly by tonight. And sure enough, I'll see something up there. And what's amazing is I can see it without my glasses, and I can't even read without my glasses. But I can see these things up in the sky that are so faint and barely moving that he can't even see them. And I'm like, can you see that? Follow my finger, and finally it'll go by like Vega or something bright, and he'll go, oh yeah, I see it. But
So
I didn't believe it either. I mean, I used to tell him, don't tell people what you do. Don't tell them. Because of the stigma.
Right.
But now it's like I'm proud of him, and I'm proud of these guys because it needs to come out because I believe every word they say. And our friend Nigel, Nigel's the hybrid, and he talks about God and where God is and stuff. So with him being a hybrid, that even makes it more relevant to me that God.
And honestly, in the Bible, we speak of the Nephilim and the fallen angels that have tried to interbreed with human women, right?
There's a
So
verse about a fiery chariot.
yeah, so it still may be well beyond our current knowledge of understanding it, but who knows, right?
And Dave, you said, you mentioned you had an object removed. Is that true?
If it wasn't true, I wouldn't tell you.
What was that? Would you
You want me to elaborate? I'll tell you all about
Yeah,
it.
Yes.
let's reset the cameras and then we'll
Yeah, Dave,
elaborate.
you tell him.
One second.
take your shoe off.
Huh?
Take your shoe off. Show them where it was. Of course. I just told him, take your shoe off and show them where it's at.